the audience to the January 19th, 2010 Parish Planning and Zoning Board meeting. At this time, if you please stand while LaSalle Williams says the invocation and pledge.
Dear Lord, we thank you for allowing us another blessed day. We thank you for this staff, the blessing of this staff. We thank you for this board. And we pray for those who have come tonight seeking some help. We ask that the Holy Spirit guide us and lead us that we might do that for which is right. We pray also a blessing for those in Haiti today who have suffered from catastrophe, and also the young men and young women who fight on the battlefield, that we might have freedom. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Coach. Christy, roll call, please.
Chair John Duhon.
Here.
Mr. Harold Doucette.
Here.
Mr. LaSalle Williams.
Here.
Mr. Jake Porche.
Here.
Mr. David Connor.
Here.
Mr. Sam Brough.
Here.
Mr. Whit Baker. Mr. Gary Navarre.
Here.
Miss Betty Brown.
Here.
Miss Latricia Cobb.
Here.
And Mr. Elijah Gilray.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. This is an 11-member board. It will take a majority of those members present to grant or deny any request heard tonight. The meeting will be conducted with me reading the request from the agenda. The planning staff will give a presentation and report their recommendations. If the applicant would like to add to the staff's presentation, or if someone from the audience has comments, please come to the microphone here at the corner and state your name and address and the nature of your request. All persons wishing to speak other than the applicant need to fill out a blue card. You'll find them back there in the back. Request to appear. I recommend that the spokesperson be selected if there's a large group that wants to speak on an item. After the discussion, the board will vote on each request. I will announce the decision of the board after the vote. All zoning exceptions and variance cases are final tonight. The study will go before the police jury for final action Thursday, January the 21st, 2010 at 5:30 p.m. in this same room. This meeting is being taped by Calcasieu Parish Government Channel and can be viewed on Wednesdays and Thursdays following the meeting. For additional run dates, check the website www.cppj.net. Channel 5 in Lake Charles and Sulphur will cover it. Channel 61 in Moss Bluff, Westlake, Denton, and DeQuincy, and Channel 99 in Carlos and Grand Lake. At this time, I would ask everyone to turn off your cell phones, pagers, anything else. Thank you, including me. First item on the agenda is to take appropriate action on case EX08001-10, a request by Raymond Dalton Harris for a zoning exception to allow a bar pit, 1.4 acres at 3673 Highway 397 in Ward 8. Ms. Wallace?
As you stated, this is located on Highway 397. The property is Zone A1 agricultural and consists of about 20 acres. And the petitioner would like to get an exception to allow a 1.4 acre dirt pit. After all the dirt is excavated, the petitioner plans to use it for personal use. The surrounding area, there is a house in the area, but the remainder of the area is pasture. The staff does recommend that this request be granted with the standard stipulations, and in addition to those stipulations, we would like to add that limestone be placed on the access road for a distance of 300 feet from Highway 397 prior to permit issuance, and once that development permit is issued, the exception is good for 2 years or once the excavation is complete, whichever comes first.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
I got a motion for approval from Mr. Doucette, a second by Mr. Navarre. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is to take appropriate action on case EX03-002-10, a request by James and Missy Morris for a zoning exception to allow residential development, a house at 4929 Weaver Road in Ward 3. Ms. Wallace?
This property is zoned C2 General Commercial, and the homeowners would like to refinance the home, and their mortgage company has asked them to get a formal exception from the Planning and Zoning Board to allow the residential development in commercial zoning. Some of the area is residential. Just to the north is an accessory structure that's metal and looks somewhat commercial. To the north of that is a house, and to the south is a metal building that's usually used for a fireworks stand. The staff does recommend that this be granted with no stipulations.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Got a motion from Mr. Navarro, a second by Mrs. Cobb. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next case is EX 03-003-10, a request by Arnie Natale for a zoning exception to allow residential development, a manufactured home at 4975 Elliott Road in Ward 3. Ms. Wallace?
This property is zoned RM, multifamily residential, and this zoning does not allow manufactured homes, although there are 2 that are currently on the property right now. And Mr. Natale would like to allow his niece to move into this area, into a mobile home on this property, so that her son can attend a school in that district. So we did look at the area. The area is mostly residential. Because it's zoned RM, Mr. Natale can actually have a number of units. So again, the issue is the fact that this is a manufactured home. Mr. Natale has constructed some duplexes just adjacent to this, and on the other side there are some apartments. To the north is Walgreens. We do recommend that the request be granted with some stipulations, that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the staff, that the manufactured home be skirted prior to utilities being connected, that the manufactured home be for immediate family only, and that landscaping be installed along the west property line within 60 days of placement of the manufactured home on the site.
Thank you. One of the stipulations you stated was that it's for the family member only.
Yes.
Did we have anything about when family member moves out? We didn't put a stipulation for that.
We didn't, but we would certainly be open to that if that was what the board wanted to do.
Go ahead and state your name and address, please.
Ray Mayberry. I'm representing Mr. Natale in this matter. When we applied for the variance, we made it understood that it's a temporary basis.
Okay. Any questions or comments, or
What age?
Baker?
What age
We
student?
have roughly 2 years left for high school.
What age is the mobile home? I mean, the
We haven't purchased one yet. It would meet whatever criteria we have to have, either new or fairly new.
Any other questions or comments?
I would make a motion that if family move out, mobile home be removed, and that be not older than 5 years of age. Is that reasonable?
Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir, that's
That'll-
fine.
All right, I got a motion that if the family member moves out, the mobile home be removed and the mobile home not be more than 5 years of age.
Yes.
Second.
I got a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I need a motion for the,
So moved.
I got a motion
Second.
from Mr. Navarro, second from Mr. Doucette. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, let's see. We got 7. Next is to take VA 01-001-10, a request by John Anthony Terrell for a zoning variance to allow non-conforming lot house on Goss Road in Ward 1. Ms. Wallace?
This property is zoned R1, single-family residential, and Mr. Terrell purchased this property around mid-2009, and the way the property was subdivided at the time that he had purchased it was a result of a subdivision that had been developed. And so these parcels that you see on the photograph were inadvertently left out and were non-conforming at the time that the subdivision was accepted. So Mr. Terrell purchased, it is considered one lot according to the legal record. He purchased this lot in July of last year, and he would like to subdivide that lot. And he wants to subdivide it into the southern part of it, 2 lots, one of which would be conforming to the zoning regulations of 16,000 square feet and 100 feet of road frontage, but the other lot is just shy of the 16,000 square feet. So we're here before you tonight because he would like a variance on those zoning regulations. The area is residential. There's a number of homes just behind this parcel, and the staff recommends that the request be granted as long as the development adheres to the site plan on file.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Is Mr. Terrell in the audience tonight? Yes, but please step to the mic. We might have some questions, sir. State your name and address.
John Anthony Terrell, 1715 Goss Road. I live on the property.
Okay. Any comments, any questions? Mr. Terrell?
I do.
Mr. Doucette?
The property, is it going to face, the residents are going to face Goss, or are they going to face into the subdivision?
The
If
way
we
I got
divide
it
that
facing
lot.
Goss.
It has to face Goss?
No, I mean, it doesn't have to. The way I gave him the plans, I mean, I can revise the plans.
I was just asking, is that your
It
intention?
faces Goss.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Motion for approval?
Second.
Well, I got some opposition.
Okay.
I've got several people that want to speak. Does one of you want to speak, be a spokesman for the group? Y'all can decide that among yourselves. Please state your name and address, sir.
Charles Westmoreland, 677 North Jovita. I represent the people of our subdivision, and the reason that we feel that this shouldn't, we'd appreciate that this wouldn't be allowed, is because the parish made this ordinance for a reason. And when we split, that is our road going into our subdivision. Well, with that being split, then the mechanical sewer systems and everything can't work the way they're supposed to. I mean, that's the reason for this ordinance. So what I'm saying is, if the ordinance was made for this reason, why should there be a variance when the parish has already passed the ordinance? And that's, that's our biggest complaint right there, is the fact. And, the lot is not big enough for a house. I mean, that's all these houses that we live back there, these are our retirement homes, and that's what our request is the parish leave the ordinance the way it is and not allow a variance. Thank you.
Somebody may have a question or comment before you leave. One of these lots is okay,
Yes,
so he can build it without a variance. Is that correct?
yes. And the house has been built there now.
One, it was built prior to the new ordinance.
Okay.
And he did not get the permit, until he's requested the permit, and they've already turned him down.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, Mr. Connor.
can we know when the property was purchased? Is it a new purchase? Has it been there for a while?
I'm sorry, sir.
It's a question for the homeowner, when the property's been purchased, was purchased.
Mr. Terrell, if you don't mind stepping back up so we can answer that question, please. Give us a brief history, if you would, a rundown of when you purchased it, when you built the house, et cetera.
5-6 months ago, I went to the parish before I purchased it.
Okay.
And I live on the property, and it's all underground sewage. Mine's all underground, so it's not going to block any sewage. The pipes on Goss Road are deep and they're big. And I sold the house right next door to me. I have like 5 houses in the subdivision. The last one I sold for $300,000. So it can tell you what I'm going to build. It's fine homes. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And the other piece of land, I was going to donate it to the subdivision because their sign is on it. But I don't know if I'll do that now. But
Hold it. Any other questions or comments? Does that answer your question? Which side is the existing house on when you face it from Goss Road? Is it on the left-hand side? Okay. It's on the left-hand side on the lot that does conform. That's correct. So he built a house on the conforming lot. He's asking for a variance on the non-conforming. And Ms. Wallace said it's slightly under the 1,600 square foot. Yes, ma'am. You want to step to the mic, state your name and address, please?
Linda Fonda, 678 South Jelly.
Go ahead.
His property joins my property. My husband and I work very hard in our yard and everything. Every time it rains, we flood, and it's like a junkyard back there coming off onto our street. He just moved the equipment that's been back there for quite some times. And I don't see how we measured it yesterday afternoon, giving him the benefit of the doubt. It's 70 foot at that corner. His other property is on the other side of Bell that he's trying to include in the 16,000 feet. And from what I understand, is to be 30 foot off the right-of-way, and he's going to have roughly 40 foot in there to build a house and have a yard and my fence. I'm worried about the health problems, mechanical sewer systems.
Any questions or comments? Yes.
For the homeowner, you referenced a sewer pipe deep.
It's all underground sewage on the piece.
It's all mechanical sewer system.
Yes, mechanical sewage, but the pipe's all underground.
Well, yeah, that's
the equipment
standard.
she's referring to belongs to y'all, the parish. They were just parking it on there because it was 4 lane in the road, or putting a soda. That's where people get killed right there.
I was
They're
just
putting a
wondering
shovel on
what
the road.
type of sewer.
So I was letting them park it there. I mean, but my place don't look like a junkyard. Man, I sold.
Please make all comments to us, not to her.
It just has a lot of trash and stuff. I'd appreciate if he'd get all away from my fence. He was attached onto my fence. He has his post from his fence on my neighbor's property, and not his. They're on the outside on my neighbor's. And it's just a chaotic mess there because it's just jammed right up against me. And my husband and I plan on retiring there. In fact, my husband just retired and moved over from Houston.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, ma'am.
Well, I was going to ask him on the plat up there. Mr. Terrell, which part of that property is the house currently on? Plot A or Plot B?
Plot A.
So the one on Part B is the proposed house?
Yes, sir. And if
You're
you
only
look,
allowing a 5 foot.
yes, sir, it's plenty big. If you look at it, you couldn't tell it wasn't conforming. I mean,
What I'm asking is you're only allowing a 5 foot boundary from the proposed house.
5 foot setback from the property line is what he's asking.
On the sides?
Your sketch of your house shows it within 5 foot of the property line.
I didn't sketch that. I forget his name at the parish done that.
So
I wouldn't put it, if it's going to look bad, I wouldn't put it there. It's going to be right in the middle of the lot. You're going to have all the boundaries. I wouldn't do it because I couldn't ever get rid of it. So, I mean.
Well, it says 5 feet.
Let me ask, what is the current setback on houses?
He meets that setback. At 5 foot is acceptable.
5 foot. Okay.
So if he went 5 foot, then he would be 85 feet from Bell Road, according to those numbers.
If this site plan is correct, yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Please step to the mic, state your name and address.
My name is Scott Mack. I live at 810 East Jovita Road in Shady Creek subdivision, which is right behind this proposed development site. My question is, will this development, if it goes forward and is approved, adversely affect the value of our property in this subdivision?
Are you asking my opinion?
Right.
In all the year, I think I've been on this board 23-something years, and all the years I've been on this board, things like this really don't affect property value. It would have to be a really ugly house to do that. It's things like school districts, industrial sites, they affect property value. These things don't.
Okay, because he had put in an application prior to this to develop both lots, and then he retracted that. And I read where somebody said that, yes, it would adversely affect our property value. Now, I know he's going to build a spec house there. It's going to be smaller than our houses. and he's going to turn around and sell it, and he's going to try to build another one on the other lot, which, you know, that's what he does for a living. I understand that. But, you know, we're there. We're planning on staying there. If the value of my property goes down, is the parish going to come out and reassess it lower, and I'm going to pay less tax? When I go to, you know, when I go to sell my house and I get less money for it because there's 3 little houses there in front of our subdivision, who's going to help me out on that? Is Tony going to help me with that? I don't think so. That's what this is about.
Isn't this property part of that subdivision? It's not. It's separate from that subdivision.
I think it was at one time, if I'm not correct, the previous owner sold it to Mr. Terrell. Is that correct? He bought it from, it was part of
Yes,
this.
but it didn't have a lot number as part of Shady Creek.
Okay,
It was me.
so it wasn't really part of the subdivision.
I was just curious.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thought about it long enough. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion for approval.
I got a motion from Mr. Doucette, a second from Mr. Ploche. Mr. Baker?
No,
Mr. Baker? All right, let's do an electronic vote, please.
Am I still at 8? Yeah. Still not hitting.
8 and 9. You got it.
I'm hitting.
Trying.
Just hold your finger down on it.
Tried that.
You're not holding your tongue right.
Yeah, I think
That's what.
hold it down for 2 seconds, he said.
Okay, it's 6, 7, 8, 9. You want to come to it? Did I get?
Here we
There
go.
we go.
8 no. Is that 3? 3 yes. Motion fails. Moving on to the next case, EX 03-036-09, a request by Matthew Courtney for a zoning exception to allow an outdoor shooting range at 9574 Seminole Blue Road in Ward 3.
This
Wallace?
property encompasses 7.5 acres of A1 zone property. The petitioner would like to have an outdoor shooting range at this location, and he would also like to have safety and hunter education courses in addition to concealed weapon courses out there. The developments that he'd like to have out there consist of the barn that's already on the property. It's a 30 by 40 foot barn, a limestone driveway, 2 skeet towers, and 4 berms, 4 earthen firing line baffles / safety berms. The property on his side of the road is actually mostly residential in nature, and across the road from him is mostly agricultural. The staff recommends that this request be denied, but if the board would like to grant the request, we do suggest the following stipulations: that the development adhere to the site plan on file, that a concrete apron be provided at the entrance of the access road, and that the proper permits through our office be obtained.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Any questions or comments?
Question for the applicant.
Okay. Will the applicant please step to the mic and state your name and address and tell us a little bit about what you're doing, please?
My name is Matthew Courtney. I live at 5702 Birch Street in Lake Charles. I'm an NRA and hunter education instructor, as well as an NRA training counselor. So I not only conduct classes to train people with firearm safety, I conduct courses to certify new NRA instructors to teach gun safety courses, and that's going to be what we're trying to get approval to use the property for. While the brief prepared by the staff is accurate as far as it goes, I would like to point out that the home to the north is not immediately to the north. There's a camp, several travel trailers, and a barn to the north between my property in that home. To the south, the home to the south is not immediately to the south. There's a pond that's more than 100 feet across between where we're wanting to put the firing line and that home. Additionally, the firing line is going to be 700 feet from the street, well back behind the residential area that's on the street. When we looked at the parish's tax rolls, there are only 9 residential addresses within a half a mile of that location. 3 of them have significant storm damage and are not presently occupied. One of the ones that is presently occupied, 2 houses to the north, is about to be bought out by the parish with FEMA grant money and bulldozed because it's in a flood area and has had multiple flood claims. The thing about this location, which caused us to choose it, is because going 2 miles back behind the direction we're going to be firing is nothing but pasture, forest, swamp, and the river. We're very excited that last week we got access to some grant money that could be worth over $108,000 to us in the next 3 years to train adult volunteers of bona fide youth organizations like the Boy Scouts and church groups. And if we're able to get this approval, we will be able to do some fabulous things for our community. We do not intend to use the property on a daily basis. We will conduct 3 classes a month maximum, and we will be shooting out there no more than 5 days a month.
So you're saying your range won't be open on a daily, just when you go out there for classes,
Correct.
the only time it'll be open?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Courtney? Thank you, sir. We've got a couple of people that wanted to speak. I have an Arthemall. Would you please step to the mic, state your name and address, sir?
My name's Eric Altamont, 9668 Simon LeBlue Road, Lake Charles. The reason I just want to put our 2 cents in, I don't know if I can say I'm representing my neighborhood. If they want me to, they can raise their hands and say, yeah, that's fine with me. But we have rode out Rita. We've rebuilt homes. We intend to stay there. We have just all the joys of life out there. And I've been looking at the pictures that he has shown you, which are seem pretty cropped. I had turned some into the board prior to what was supposed to be the November 17th hearing. That actually shows where the homes are in comparison to his barn and his range. The Terrios are due north of him. You can see Miss Terrio standing by the white fence that goes up to his barn. From the fence to Miss Terrio's house is 77 feet. I didn't go on his property, but just counting his rails on his fence, if they're 8 feet apart, her porch at her home is only about 150 at the max feet away from it, due north of it. West of it, it is pasture land behind him with cattle in it, but west of that, you have trees, you have residents there. You have people living on Miracle Lane, people living on Nash Lane. That's where our big concerns are, is our safety of our family members out there. The other one would be the disturbance of the loud shots fired. I know he stuck a decimal range chart in with his hearing, but you get out there in the back of those homes on a clear, cool day when there's nothing to suppress sound and listen to the report of a gun on the side of your home or whatever you're at that time. Also, I've looked at the berms that he has set up. I know a little bit about berms. I shoot at them all the time. Most of the people that are from my neighborhood are gun advocates. We love to hunt, shoot, and fish. My job entails that I carry a gun. So I know there's accidents. Berms are there, but rounds are known to go over berms. Just read the Lake Charles American Press, and I'll go no further with that. We're just concerned about that. Also, values of the property. We know there's a need and a place and a time for a rifle range, and we have them here in Calcasieu Parish. But in the middle of a residential area where we're raising families and going to conduct our everyday life, I don't think it's the place for it. And I think some other information was supplied to y'all from y'all's parish enforcement division, where he has tried to skirt some of that since the 17th was postponed to now. I'll let y'all's people handle that information to you. I just wanted to pass that on. All we do, we hope that y'all will see our concerns, and needs for our family's way of life out there, and not approve this rezoning. Thank you,
Mr. Dalton. Any comments or questions?
I have a question for the applicant. After looking at those photos.
Yes, Mr. Courtney, if you would step up to the mic, we got a question of you.
Although I was handed a photo with a lot of vehicles on the driveway going up to your barn. Are you conducting classes out there now?
We conducted a hunter education class on December 21st. The information that we had from the attorney on our board of directors and from Wildlife and Fisheries was that in an A1 area that is zoned for private schools, we can conduct activities that are carried out in K through 12 schools in Louisiana, and hunter education is a part of ag classes in many schools in Louisiana.
So the classes you were given for 4-H and FFA people? Were you doing it with Calcasieu Parish School Boards, or were you doing it for independent
Parish
people?
School Board doesn't participate in hunter education courses any longer.
How is it a private class? How are you considered a private school? Are you registered that way?
Yes, sir. We are incorporated in the state of Louisiana as a private school, a nonprofit private school.
Well, I guess so. Yes, the answer is yes. That you're conducting classes.
Yes, sir.
Before coming to the board.
The information we had from Wildlife and Fisheries was that hunter ed didn't need to be conducted at a formal outdoor shooting range. They approved the course. They advertised it on their website. We informed them about concerns people in the area had, and in fact, they approved us to do another class out there on January 25th, knowing that the zoning issue was still pending.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that's the information that I got from Wildlife and Fisheries. I'd like to make a couple other comments in reference to what Mr. Altamont said. If you look at your site plans, it is going to be well behind the rear portion of the property to the north where Mr. Vincent and Mr. Terrio live. So there is no chance of an errant bullet going that way and endangering anybody in those houses. We're going to be constructing an entirely comprehensive set of berms out there to prevent any type of mishap or any type of bullet escaping from the range.
So those things are built now?
No.
Well, you're conducting classes now?
Shotgun course does not require a berm. We had some preliminary work done to test the soil to see if we could build berms out of the soil that exists there. The guy piled those up in a rough manner, which will, kind of help out when we get out there with all the equipment to build the permanent berms. But what's out there now was really just stuff that was stacked up to do soil tests. And again, the hunter ed class was conducted with a shotgun, and over 600 feet shotgun pellets aren't really a danger.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask you, if you do plan to this, how high will your berm be?
The backstop berm is required by NRA guidelines to be 18 feet high, and that's as high as we can construct with a conventional track hoe. On top of that, we're going to put railroad ties in a manner similar to what the sheriff's office did. Union Pacific Railroad is one of my wife's clients, and they're donating as many railroad ties as we may need to complete construction on the project in a safe way.
Any other questions? Yes, sir, Mr.
Well,
Connor.
I kind of had the same question. I would guess that NRA gives guidelines, but they're not giving any. They're not in any position of jurisdiction to determine are to require a certain height on these berms. Is there another regulatory body that you can tell me? Is it Wildlife and Fisheries? Is it the state of Louisiana?
The National Rifle Association is in a position to revoke my credentials to teach if I do anything that's not considered safe and within their safety guidelines. They could shut me down tomorrow.
Right, but what has that got to do with this? Who is the jurisdiction that requires some sort of safety? Is it a local jurisdiction? Is it a state jurisdiction that requires a berm height for a length of a range? You know, if you're shooting a 200-foot range or a 500 range.
To my knowledge, there is no state or local body that does that.
State body?
I've got a certificate that was issued to me by the state police so that I could conduct concealed handgun permit training classes, and I've never heard of them reprimanding an instructor for using a facility that didn't meet any particular set of guidelines. And I've actually trained 46 new NRA pistol instructors in the past 9 months.
Well, I guess I kind of find it hard to believe that there's not some guidelines on safety that deals with the trajectory of high-speed bullets versus what kind of a backstop you've got
The Lake Charles,
in relation to the distance that those bullets are going to travel, you know?
The Lake Charles Gun Club uses the same NRA guidebook that I do.
Only as a recommendation.
I don't consider it to be a recommendation because they can revoke my credentials to teach if I don't follow their guidelines.
Gives me a good answer, but
that's I mean.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Okay,
Broke.
I understand.
Have you looked at any other alternative sites?
Yes, sir. We looked at sites all over the parish for about 14 months. Prior to looking around for sites, we were using the Lake Charles Gun Club, but the property that 4-H was using got incorporated when the city extended its city limits southward, and they couldn't use the property at the Ag Center anymore, started using the gun club. So now the Lake Charles Gun Club is used 2 weekends a month by the Cowboy Action Shooting Club and 2 weekends a month by 4-H. So that facility is not accessible to us anymore. And that was the only facility, that was the only location that we could find that met the safety requirements or that we could modify to meet the safety requirements under the NRA guidelines.
That location is on 397? Where's
The Lake Charles Gun Club is on that's Wardline Road?
Wardline Road.
Yeah, is on Wardline Road. And in fact, the property immediately adjacent to it is the next agenda item for y'all to consider to rezone that property commercial. So the storms have kind of got people building out to the east instead of to the south. And hopefully the gun club won't end up being pushed out of existence by other developments in that area. But our analysis showed that not only was this a safe place to put the range, but it was a place that the area way back behind it was not likely to be developed in the future because with its FEMA flood zone issues and stuff, people just aren't going to be able to get money to build any residential or commercial buildings in that area back there behind where we're going to put the range.
What types of weapons will you be firing out here? Pistols, rifles, long rifles, shotguns?
The vast majority of our training is done with 22 pistols and 22 rifles. The hunter education courses have to be done with a firearm that Wildlife and Fisheries provides to us, so we use a 20-gauge shotgun that they give us. The last step in an NRA rifle course is to zero your own rifle. So after we go through 14 hours teaching them how to shoot a rifle using a 22, they zero their own rifle, whatever it is that they've brought. So there might be, on occasion, a few shots fired from a high-powered rifle.
And what's the effective range of a 22 bullet?
22 bullet, effective range or possible flight distance?
Both.
The effective range is about a quarter mile to a half mile, depending on what load you're using.
So that's
possible flight distance is about 1.5 miles.
2,680 feet.
So you understand that the reason you're here is because we don't permit gun ranges in A1, and you're here for a variance, right?
Y'all don't permit gun ranges in any zoning area in the parish without an exception.
For good reason.
You're an A1, though.
I heard what Mr. Bro said, and with all due respect, sir, Calcasieu Parish went for a long time without any of our residents being killed in gun accidents. But in 2008, in December of 2008, we lost a long-time parish resident, and just last year we lost a little boy to gun accidents because guns were being handled by people who hadn't had any safety training.
I'm not familiar with that case, and I'm sorry to hear that, but my personal opinion is there should be a bigger buffer zone if we're going to allow a shooting range. And I would even recommend to the police here we go as far as 20 to 40 acres.
I've got a Mr. or Mrs. Perry want to speak. Want to say something, sir? Please step up, state your name and address.
Yes, sir. Mr. Artemon said most of the things I'm concerned about. We're, I think, downrange from where he's talking about. My name's Guthrie Perry, 1285 Arsene LeBlue. Went through Rita and Ike, and we've elevated. We plan to stay there. And we're about, I guess, about 3/4 miles from the end of where that trajectory would be. Yeah, 22 mile and a half. Some of the bigger ordinance, we go further. I know Wildlife and Fisheries got a range up in Woodworth that right now they're presently got to change it around a little bit because they've had some ordinance go over a mile from there into a forestry building. Nobody was hurt, but it's a priority item to rearrange that facility over there. I think Mr. Artemon has got some things that happen around here in mind also. So we are concerned about the size of the ordinance, and there's a definite need for children to go through this Hunter Ed. I know our grandson recently went through it, and he really learned a lot. And we've got, like, in our property, you know, we've got like 7 grandchildren. Every Sunday afternoon, they go on a little go-kart, the golf cart, they ride, and it's 10 acres, long and narrow. And we would be kind of downrange from where he's talking about.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Restate your name and address, please.
Yes, sir. Eric Altamont, 9668 Simon LeBlue Road. I also am a hunter education instructor, have been for 12 or 14 years. And as sad as it is that somebody didn't have the training to properly use a handgun or a shotgun, whatever, I don't know what the case was, I'm not familiar with it either. It's up to the parents to train those children. If they're not going to bring them to get trained, it doesn't matter if you have 12 hunter education shooting ranges out there, it's not going to make a difference. As far as we're not building out there because of the hurricanes, that's baloney. You can go between Randy Cormier's house, and I don't know its exact address, and Mr. Perry's. There's a new 2-story home house going up there. If you can't see it, maybe you shouldn't be out there shooting if you can't see that big thing from the road. But we are concerned because we are still growing out there. We're raising families, and, you know, there's just too much probability. I don't want to come back later and say, damn, we wish we would have that kid or that person. You know, if it's a cow, we'll barbecue the damn thing, but we can't do nothing when it's one of our relatives or our children. And I thank you all for your time again.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Need a motion?
Make a motion.
No, sir. It's over with. Thank you.
Motion for approval.
I got a motion for Mr. Navarro.
I'll second it.
A second for Mr. Doucette. Let's have electronic vote, please.
I must have gotten yours. Was it yours that was so bad? I want my thing fixed.
You're going to have a class on voting, David. I'm 1. I'll be the 1.
I'm 9.
You're 9.
Yeah. Who? Mr. Gilrery.
3 is Guillory and 9 is Brown.
Yes.
Vote again, Elijah.
There we go. Now just miss.
Still not.
Got it.
There you go, got it.
10 no, 1 yes. Motion fails. Next item on the agenda is to take action on STO 3001-10, a request by Calcasieu Parish Police Jury for feasibility and reclassification certain tracts of land in Ward 2 and 3 near intersections of 397 and Highway 14. And this is agriculture and single-family residential and light commercial. Ms. Wallace?
Yes. In December of last year, the police jury did authorize the staff to take a look at this area. We've had a couple of requests just recently for commercial zoning. We had a request on the north side of Highway 14 to do a daycare center and a meat market. That was approved. And then we had an inquiry from a citizen about the possibility of putting in a convenience store there. There is a new subdivision that's not included in the study area, but you can see it's just adjacent to the east. Well over 100 homes are going into this area. I think there's a possibility of getting over 300 homes in that area. So obviously it's a growing area, and in the Vision Calcasieu process, we identified it as an area that we should grow into, because it is, for the most part, the white areas, you can see this is the flood map, it is for the most part high and dry, and we feel like it is a good area to have future residential development and commercial development. So we took a look at this node area right there at the intersection of Highway 397 and Highway 14. The study area is almost 392 acres, currently zoned A1 agricultural or R1 single family residential. The land use pattern in the area, it is mostly agriculturally used right now. There is the subdivision that I talked about. There's a communications tower. There's also a few houses right on the corner. With all that being said, and keeping Vision Calcasieu in mind, we do feel like in order to plan, the best plan for this area is to have the commercial use right there at the corner and along Highway 397 south to Goche Road. So we do ask for your favorable consideration and grant this request.
I've got a couple of people, Mr. Bonan. Did you want to say something before we go on? Ms. Arena, you wanted to state something?
Janice Areno, 1220 Gant Road, Sulphur, Louisiana. I'm here representing Mr. William D. Blake, who owns the Bell Arbor Timber property, which I have a handout for to go with it. It's an observation, a couple of comments about this particular study. Mr. Blake received a letter dated January the 4th telling him that the Division of Planning and Development had conducted a feasibility study, and that he could come to the meeting on January the 19th and again on the 21st and discuss this, and the parish encourages your input on this study. Well, come to find out, the study had already all been completed before they sent him a letter to tell him that something was happening on his property, and it encouraged his input on the study. And when we did call about it, we received a packet that had already been completed, and he would have liked to have had some input on the study. Mainly the fact that his corner, which is the southwest corner of the intersection of Highway 14 and 397, which comes out as a dark strip on your map because it's planted in timber. His property extends the whole mile along Highway 14, which, in our viewpoint, the more readily developed piece of commercial property would have been along Highway 14 instead of going south for a whole mile down Ward Line Road to Goche, which has virtually no traffic or very little traffic. And Mr. Blake is not opposed to the fact that his corner is being put up to be rezoned for commercial. He would just like his whole strip changed to commercial, because he does intend to do some further development on this property in the future. And the other, thing he had to say was the fact that all this was done without him ever being contacted, that his property was arbitrarily being rezoned without his input or without, any say-so from him as to whether he wanted it done or not. Had he planned a subdivision on this property and you rezoned it commercial, he would have been having to pay to get his zone back to residential through no fault of his own. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is he's not opposed to his corner being changed to commercial. He would just like his whole strip of property to be changed, because it does abut Highway 14. It is more readily accessible for commercial development, and that would fit in with his future plans of what to do with the property. So I would ask that we're not opposed to what is being proposed. I would just ask that the balance of his property that goes down to the next road, which is, this is Ward Line Road, that other road is something else. It's got a number.
That's the little portion that's outlined in red, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the balance of his property that abuts Highway 14. And I would ask for your consideration in adding that to the property that's being considered for commercial zoning. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see all of you.
You did.
We discussed this earlier, Ms. Arena, and I apologize if they were tardy on informing you. I don't think anyone's opposed to extending it all the way to the line. It's just I don't think tonight's a good time to do that. And if you wanted, or your employer wanted to do that, we could just come back at a later date and request it be done, and we could take care of it. Mr. Victor, you want to say something?
Yeah, we've kind of, when we do one of these studies, basically, when we start, one of the first things we have to do is kind of get with the elected officials that represent that area, and certainly get their input as to what their feelings are, whether they think it's worthy, that type of thing. And we had to come up with a certain set of boundaries in order to give them some direction as to what was intended and where it was intended, if we're going to change the land use in the area. I think that this is a first start. We realize that Mr. Blake has a great deal of property, and the area outlined in the red. There's also property that is on the north side of Highway 14 across from his that we certainly need to look at. And I think that we can look at that, and we probably will look at that. But right now, what we have done is we've got the permission from the elected officials to basically give consideration to the areas that are outlined in the yellow. And that's what the elected officials directed us to do. And but I don't think we have any problem, like I said, with expanding that potential area. And again, there's areas along the north side of Highway 14 that would need to be addressed. So I think in due time, I think within a couple of months, we could probably have that and bring back a recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Board and subsequently the police jury.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Got a motion for Mr. DeVore. Got a motion on the floor. I'm sorry. And since I don't have a second, go ahead. State your name and address. You want to say something, sir? Yeah, please state your name and address.
Jerry Peliquin, 2821 East Highway 14. I own the property on the northeast corner of 397 Ward Line and Highway 14. My question is, I'm concerned about taxes because it's being rezoned as commercial. I'm kind of the way she is. We got the letter on the second week of this month and knew nothing about any study prior. property that I'm talking about right now is the southeast corner, which looks like borders a drainage ditch. And then when it hits Highway 397, looks like it backs up about 200 feet or so off the Wardline Road and follows all the way to the gun club. How did that come about? Who drew that line?
Well, I guess between like Mr. Vickers said, the people who elected to represent that area and the planning staff, I guess they got together and did that.
So that was a police juror that did that?
Pardon?
Police juror recommended that?
I'm sure he was involved in it.
Shouldn't he have contacted the landowners?
Well, you were contacted with a letter.
On January the 4th, after the survey had already been done?
You can't pick up the phone and call us?
Mr. Vickers, how would you feel if your land had already been reclassified and you got the letter the first week of the month?
It hadn't been reclassified. It's being proposed
right
to be
out there.
reclassified.
It says
Mr.
it's coming
Pelton?
up tonight, and then under it the board recommended it, and it had been to reclassify it. So it's not a survey that what you're doing tonight. We're reclassifying it. Is what you're doing. You're going to vote on it, and you're going to approve it, and it's going to go before the police juror, and it's going to be voted on. Is that not right?
That is correct.
How did that line get drawn that way?
Which line are you referring to?
I'm talking about the line on Highway 14, on
So,
Ward line.
Let me ask you something. Are you in opposition to your land being involved in this?
I don't know. I mean, I'm concerned about my taxes. That's the main thing.
Well, this is not going to impact your taxes. The zoning, only if improvements are put on the property, is going to impact your taxes.
Going from agricultural to commercial.
Yes, sir. That's correct. It's not going to impact your taxes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
You know, I ask a question to make sure we're clear on what it is we're voting on. The purpose of the request is to study the feasibility of reclassifying certain areas, but you're telling, am I understanding correctly, that this study's already been done, and tonight we're voting to reclassify, or are we voting to extend the study, or extend the boundaries of the study?
I don't think we're voting to extend the boundaries of the study.
Okay.
And you would be voting to reclassify or not to reclassify.
Based on the study that's already
right
before us. Okay.
Yes, sir. You want to say something real quick?
Yes. Robert Gale, 1217 11th Street. I'm president of Open A1 Ranch. It looks like you went down the ditch in the back of our property there, and then along Ward line just went like, I don't know, is that 1 acre?
Just for a matter of information, which direction is your property, please?
The whole, everything on the north except what's Mr. Blake.
Okay. Go ahead.
Open A1 Ranch. That line shown follows the ditch that runs through the property, it looks like.
It does.
And I wonder why the boundary on the east side of Ward line is, it looks like maybe an acre into the property or something like that. So that's all set up to be like acre lots or something?
Yes.
I'm just wondering why it extends all the way back to the ditch on us.
Well, you're following a boundary line, basically, the ditch line. That's what we wanted to.
Why didn't you do that on the east? Go back to some ditch or some water course?
Because there was no ditch line there. And the elected officials that we talked to when we presented them to this, they looked at that and they felt like it was okay. That's what they wanted to do.
Well, and also there was reference made to this being Highway 397. That is not Highway 397. That's Wardline Road. 397, when it hits Highway 14, goes a mile west and then goes down south from there. So 397 is only north of Highway 14 on this diagram. And also, like Mr. Blake, we knew nothing about it.
Let me say one thing. Quite frequently, at the owner's request, we rezone back and forth. For example, if you wanted to come back later with a subdivision on the back side of this and wanted it R1, chances are it would happen. We do that all the time. So,
Well, the majority of the folks.
Robert Gale, 1217 11th Street, Open A1 Ranch. What's the reason then for doing it? Why zone it commercial if you can go back and?
I'm guessing it's.
Has there been a request made by the, what is it, Duvals, to zone their property commercial?
It's probably a group of people that have decided they need some commercial development in that area due to the fact that they've had a lot of residential development there, and you're going to need things like stores and gas stations, etc. And this is the most likely, since it's an intersection of two big roads, this is the most likely area to set up a commercial zone in that area.
Ask them if you'd like to be excluded.
Well, that's a
you
good
want to be
question.
excluded?
I don't know.
I mean,
First we heard of it, my cousin called me and said he got a letter.
Ken, that doesn't matter.
Yes, Mr. Connor.
Is there any reason why we are need to proceed with this tonight? You know, we've got some landowners here in the area that obviously for their fault or our fault or whatever that might be, have not been in the conversation. We're going to make this drastic of a change. How about some additional input from those surrounding to their police jurors, I would say, and then back to us to see if we want to include additional areas or what these other landowners want. So I think we probably ought to consider a motion to defer for 30 days or 60 days. Or
I will state if we okay, it will go before the jury Thursday night. They can present their case and they can defer it. Or we can defer, whatever.
I'll make a motion to defer. Second. 30 days.
I got a motion to defer and a second by Mr. Navarro. Let's do electronic vote.
On the motion.
On the motion.
Well, we know how to vote, that's why.
Here we go.
They hadn't been to voting school yet.
Now that button don't work.
There's a short over there somewhere between you two.
Yeah. Let's check our chairs, maybe.
Loose ground.
Short circuit.
I don't know what else to do. I've tried all kind of different.
Stand on your head.
Help me, Tom.
8, 9, won't. Here we go. 8.
8 goes.
Got 9.
Let it rest for a while, and it'll take.
You can do it.
I am trying.
Hold on to your chin like this.
It went.
That's just a bad signal. 10-1 to defer, and we
The
didn't.
amendment. That's for the amendment.
Well, that's to defer it. For a 30-day deferral, give you folks a chance to visit with your representatives in the parish and decide what you want to do. Thank you.
Are you on the deferral?
Mr. Chairman, if we can, I just want to make a notice. The last time I voted on this, now this time it did correctly, but on the last one we did, it did not do correctly.
It didn't register your vote correctly?
Right. And I don't know if it would have mattered. I mean, it would have still went the same direction.
Right.
But it didn't register.
If that happens again, bring it to our attention when it does it, please. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to advise that the next regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Board meeting will be held Wednesday, February the 17th, 2010 in the Plustierre Room. Motion to adjourn?
I move.
Motion adjourned.